And now, aviation weather around Alaska.
Thursday mornings, flying weather graphic. Got areas of IFR here across southern Alaska. More IFR up here over the northern Bering Sea to the south coast of the Seward Peninsula and into the Strait. And some along here over the, just in close to the Yukon Delta there, or the Yukon River here. Otherwise, VFR for portions of Bristol Bay, marginal for the Bering Sea and the Aleutians. IFR over the northern panhandle, but better down to the south. VFR, central interior. And then for the afternoon, a lot of VFR here, central interior eastward. Marginal VFR along the Alaska Range into the Talkeetnas with IFR for western Prince William Sound. And down around Kachemak Bay, or Kamishak Bay, that is. And even more widespread IFR here, Kodiak Island, Alaska Peninsula, eastern Aleutians. And still some IFR up here near the Seward Peninsula, St. Lawrence Island, through the Bering Strait, and then up to the northwest coast, roughly around Kivalina, up to Point Hope and Cape Lisburne. Central eastern part of the state, VFR, no change out over the Bering Sea. We've got an area of VFR here forming over the central Aleutians and well into the Bering Sea there for the morning Friday. Otherwise, big area of IFR here over the eastern Bering Sea into the southwest coast. And marginal VFR, western and central Arctic coast. VFR here, interior areas. And south central Alaska, actually across all southern Alaska here, areas of marginal VFR with areas of IFR. And also for the panhandle, not too bad, marginal VFR with VFR over the inside waters to the border. And for the afternoon, area of IFR here pushes eastward into the southeast coast, especially central and northern areas along the North Gulf Coast, Prince William Sound, eastern Kenai Peninsula, Kodiak Island, eastern slopes of the western Alaska Range, all IFR. Another batch out here over the southeast Bering into Bristol Bay and portions of the southwest coastal areas. Marginal VFR here pushing up along the Yukon River Valley there, almost to the flats, but VFR for the north slope and the Arctic coast. And marginal VFR, good portion of the Bering Sea here with VFR possible, Adak, Atka, and the eastern Aleutians. Passes, Anatuvik, VFR tomorrow. Same forecast for Adigan, VFR. Lake Clark and Merrill, occasional marginal VFR throughout the day. On Thursday, rainy, same forecast. Windy, VFR, and should be a VFR day for Isabel, at least in part. And for Mentasta, VFR. Tanita, though, more of a marginal condition there for that pass. And Portage, marginal VFR, possible IFR here on the eastern entrance. And Chilkoot and White, VFR. Freezing levels, 2,000 feet south of the forecast area here and at the surface off the North Gulf Coast, near Kodiak Island, and out over the Bering Sea north of the Pribilos, but then back down toward the Adak area and maybe near or just south of the western Aleutians. Icing with the, you got one system weakening here and still bringing a threat of some considerable moderate rime icing over the Chukchi Sea, possibly affecting the northwest coast there, but a bigger area with that next system coming up. Quite an area here in advance and along the front of considerable moderate icing, Alaska Peninsula, on Alaska Island, up into the Kuskokwim Delta, Bristol Bay, eastward here across Cook Inlet, and that'll be lifting north of Kodiak Island late tomorrow afternoon, and then down into the Gulf. And the jet stream here showing southwest flow here near Kodiak Island about 80 knots, otherwise westerlies 90 to 105 knots through the central interior, and then turn northwest at about 130 to 140 knots just east of the Panhandle, lighter winds out west. 9,000 feet here, we've got southerlies along the west coast. The Seward Peninsula anywhere from 30 to 40 knots, and another increase in the winds as this system lifts northward here. 45 to 60 knots, still well south of Kodiak Island. Easterlies or westerlies about 30 knots for the Aleutians, and light for the Panhandle, light for the eastern central interior to the Arctic coast. And again, even at 3,000 feet, high pressure here, keeping the winds light, kind of southeast, a little breezy there for the coastal areas of the Panhandle. Up to 40 knots, though, blowing in toward Prince William Sound. 50 knots here across northeast Bristol Bay, northern Bristol Bay, and then southerly winds 35 to 40 knots there with that system here pulling back slowly northward and weakening. 60 knots though coming up towards Sitkinak Island and the Alaska Peninsula out of the east, and then turning north and northeast over toward the eastern Aleutians. Turbulence-wise, look for considerable moderate turbulence spreading northward here into southern Cook Inlet, Kamishak, Kachemak Bays in the afternoon, Kodiak Island just about all day, Aleutian Range, Alaska Peninsula to Unalaska Island, also considerable moderate turbulence for Norton Sound and the Seward Peninsula and maybe St. Lawrence Island. Eastern part of the state, actually from the Arctic coast right on down into the Gulf and Panhandle, looking rather smooth.